I normally wouldn't ask a director to expound on the title of his or her film, but because you've made this beautiful, meticulous exploration of a divorce and called it Marriage Story, I love the decision, and I'm curious what was behind it.
Well, I always thought of it as a love story, and there's this there's that sort of philosophy of that or something a philosopher I know has said, and I don't know who it is. I should probably learn it so I can answer the question better. But but this sort of notion that when something stops working, you take notice of it in a way that you wouldn't otherwise. So a door doesn't open, you look at the door. Otherwise you just open it. You don't think about the door. I mean, we all deal with that with cars. You open up the hood, suddenly you're like, well, how does this thing work? When we all just kind of go about our lives. And I thought, well, in a sense, that a divorce could reflect on a marriage the same way.
Alan, what are your recollections of your first interactions with Noah when you were talking about doing this film, and what your response was when you read the script, and particularly the character of Bert Spitz?
Well, what impressed me the most was the beautiful writing of the whole script, which always interests me more than the character I'm going to play. I don't want to be in a movie I wouldn't want to go see. I don't know if everybody feels that way. Right. But the thing that impressed me is what you were just talking about, that Noah managed to make a movie about a divorce that really is a love story. And the interesting thing is, in a marriage, you have to learn to collaborate, you have to learn to cooperate. But when that falls apart and you get a divorce, you actually have to cooperate better during the divorce than you did during the marriage, which is ironic. Yeah. And Noah shows that. He shows how difficult it is and how underneath it all they do love each other. And I think that's an amazing accomplishment that Noah has achieved. And I'm so glad to have been able to be there with him while he did it. My first impression of Noah on the set, which you did ask me about, I was answering another question.
No, it's good.
My first impression of Noah was how relaxed he was and how open he was. He didn't give the impression of being somebody who had the whole movie in his head, which every director does, and leads to sometimes vagueness. He was very available, and I really appreciated that. And he was right there with us all the time, right, while we were figuring out the scenes. It was not to do it this way or else,
Julie, when you saw the finished product for the first time, because I do think that is one of the interesting things about it, is that as an audience, our allegiances are shifting as well.
Yes.
And that's really fascinating also through the lens of your character.
Well, I feel in the movie, when the picture, when you watch it, you root for, your feelings change as in life when things happen. You kind of believe that story, and then that story changes, and you go over there. But that's the perfection, I think, of Noah's storytelling, and that it's so we were just talking a little minute ago about the fact that the language, when you see it, we were listening and we didn't know that it was the movie. We thought we were hearing people speaking. Wow. And it's really hard to memorize because it's so honest and how you talk, and you think, oh, that's easy. But it's not easy because it's not phony.
Right. David, in many ways, this project is a combination of so many kind of mini genres in one film. You have physical comedy, you have domestic story, you have this kind of courtroom aspect. It's almost a musical in some ways. How did that affect
horror?
Right. How did that affect the way that you did your job from a kind of production standpoint?
From a producerial point of view, and I probably shouldn't say this, but it was relatively straightforward because Noah is such a great communicator to his cast, a great communicator to his production designer, costume designer, cameraman, everybody. He has the film very much in his head, and yet he is open to the process of to collaboration, and he loves conversation and discussion. I mean, when we were talking about the script, we would talk for days about it, and Noah loves to sort of stress test his ideas and explore and go on the journey, and yet he has always such clarity and he's a brilliant expressive communicator, so you know exactly what he wants. So from my point of view, I suppose the greatest, one, it was my first film with Noah, so getting to know him and his specific ways of working, but really, I suppose my biggest role was helping him create the space for him to do the work that he does. He creates a very intimate space and in which everybody feels safe to do the work. You can see that these actors and Adam and Scarlett, go to they're very brave, and they're Noah, and they dare to fail, which I think is a remarkable thing to be a part of. It's sort of pushing the envelope and that sort of high wire act. And it's sort of creating the space for Noah and everybody to do the work that they do.
I do want to talk about Adam Driver, Scarlett Johansson, Laura Dern. I mean, 3 performances that I'm just never going to forget. All 3 so terrific. Yes, Alan, you have moments, scenes with Adam and Laura. Julie, you have scenes with Adam and Scarlett. What are things that stick out when the two of you each think about those cast members and working with them?
The main thing that sticks out is their generosity and true kindness and fun. I mean, trying to pick Adam up, and sometimes he kind of, because we did it a few times, he would kind of go, and try and be helpful. But you created a space for us all to have our freedom and joy and trust and playfulness and in all that stuff that goes on. So thank you for that, Noah.
Thank you, Julie.
Most of my scenes were with Adam, and I was struck immediately by how genuine he was, both on camera and off camera. He's really himself, and he knows who he is as a person, and that really helps him be who he has to be when he plays a character. And he's able to find in himself the spare parts for whatever character he's playing, no matter how different that is from who you see when you meet him. I saw him in the same week that I saw this movie for the first time. I saw him play a completely different character in Burn This on Broadway. I mean, they're polar opposites. And if you only saw one of them, you'd say, well, of course, he's just playing himself. Because there was no artifice. He just was the person. And he is the person when you talk to him. And I'm very, very fond of him. We got to be good friends right away, which is easy to do because there's no crap with him. He's really honest.
We talked about Adam. I was just going to say something about Scarlett, which the monologue she delivers in Nora's office, which I think was like 6-7 pages, and it was always going to be one take. So, and we shot on film, so we'd always have to have a new mag, or else we'd roll out, which would be a disaster at that point. And as a director, when you're directing like a really long take, it is. I mean, you're both like. You're thinking about the scene, what the performance thing, but you're also at a certain point, if it's going well, you really are just like holding on, like, is this, are we going to make it to the end? Because there is no other way. A great take that's 3/4 long is never we can't use it. So she was, thing we talked about in that for that scene was also that I wanted her to kind of live it as she said it, that it should almost feel like a theatrical monologue in a sense of like, somebody in a play maybe walks down to the footlights and sort of tells a story. And so when she's when times are good, she's happy. When times are, that. So it was a lot for her too. Not only, the sort of journey of the story, even as it is. But also, it required a lot of her every take. But I could give her a note. We would finish a take, and I could say something. Maybe you could try. And you're flipping through the sides like here, yeah, and it could be 4 minutes into it, and she could take that in, and then she could do the whole thing, and it was like almost sort of like I felt like watching like a great athlete do what they do best. She could make the adjustment, and while still doing everything in the same mode of everything, the way she'd done it before, things we liked, things we wanted again. And make these just precise changes throughout while being emotionally available, true to the moment. I mean, it was really, it was one of the earlier things we shot, and I really felt like, it was a kind of a great way to get to know an actor.
Noah, Alan, Julie, David, thank you
Thank
so
you,
much.
Dave.